No
Microphone.
microphones?
Only out of a speaker. This is the main microphone for all of us. So these mics do not work. You will move it to live. We might as well. So we good to go? All right. My name is Dave Wagers. Good evening and welcome to the Boise School District Board of Trustees February meeting. We apologize for the late start. We had audio visual issues. We still have some, but we want to have a meeting tonight. We want to be able to broadcast it. We also want people to be able to see us and interact and see the meeting go on. So we are going to make that happen. It may not be as smooth as we always hope for, but it's going to go. Before I start, I would like to remind everybody that we conduct our meetings according to the district values of respect, dignity, honesty, responsibility, and teamwork. In keeping with those values, here are the rules for our board meetings. First, out of respect to all of our patrons, trustees, and staff, interruptions to our business will not be tolerated. Any person who tries to disrupt this meeting will be given one warning. If there is a second disruption, that person or persons will be asked to leave. The meeting will not continue until the person or persons has left the room. Second, our district is currently mandating the mask be worn in our buildings. Please wear a mask during your time in our buildings. Similar to disruptions, you will be given one warning to replace your mask. If there is a second incident, that person or persons will be asked to leave. The meeting will not continue until the person or persons has left the room. Third, if you have input you would like to share with the board, please submit it in email. Our email addresses can be found on the district website. I assure you that every member of the board reads the emails we receive. Thank you for supporting these board meeting rules. So with that, we will go ahead and proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance. And I think we do have Hawthorne Elementary, but we're going to have a little bit of a lag in between things because of our difficulties, but we will do it. So Hawthorne Elementary, third grade class.
Hello, we are third graders in Miss Schofield's class at Hawthorne Elementary. We would like to sing a song for you called Oh, I Love America.
We'll try again. There we go.
Hello, we are third graders in Miss Schofield's class at Hawthorne Elementary. We would like to sing a song for you called Oh, I Love America. saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
That is a great way to start the meeting. I love to hear the kids singing and talking about America. It's a good spot we live in. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to the Red and Gold Apple Award video presentation. So go ahead and proceed with those as you guys are ready.
It is our distinct honor to recognize an individual who has served the children of the Boise School District for 6 years. This person is a fierce advocate for students with special needs. This person has a heart of gold. She sees students for who they are and for what they can do and not for what they cannot do. She's always looking for ways to help students in the Extended Resource Room program learn and grow. She is willing to do whatever it takes to meet the needs of students. This person's team approach to supporting students is another one of her great strengths. She will do whatever is required so that students' needs are met. She is always on the lookout for new and creative ways and ideas to go above and beyond to make sure all students are finding success. Staff and students agree that they are fortunate to have this person advocating for Extended Resource Room students in their building. It is our great pleasure to recognize Shelley Douglas, Extended Resource Room paraprofessional from West Junior High School. Shelley, we present you the Golden Apple Award for February 14th, 2022 for outstanding service to education and for educating today for a better tomorrow.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for this award. It's unexpected and really exciting for me. I really love what I do here at West Junior High, and the kids are the reason I'm here. They really excite me every day, and it really makes me happy to see them smile and succeed. I want to thank my administration, my team, the general ed teachers that I work with, and also my family. I know the last couple years has been kind of difficult for everybody, but we kind of pull together and support one another, and I want to thank you.
It is our distinct honor to recognize an individual who has served the children of the Boise School District for 7 years. This person is an asset to students and staff at West Junior High School. This person's extended resource program at West might be the best anywhere, according to fellow staff members. His students not only make amazing progress, but they are an absolute joy and love being at school every day. Parents consistently ask if this teacher can move on to Bora High School with their student because of the success their child is having in the program and at school in general. This person is not easily rattled. His calm demeanor and ability to diffuse situations is truly nothing short of a miracle. This person also has a fantastic support staff that he would give all the credit to, and they are amazing, but it is because of his leadership, teamwork, kindness, and ability to find everyone's strengths that makes him such a special educator. This person never has an unkind word to say about anyone. He looks for the positive in every situation and gives his students everything they need to be successful. He has created a culture where students learn to advocate for themselves, push themselves to succeed, and believe in themselves. Staff and students alike are thankful to have this person and his team at West Junior High School. It is our pleasure to recognize Perry Johnson, Extended Resource Room teacher at West Junior High, with the Red Apple Award for February 14th, 2022, for outstanding service to education and for educating today for a better tomorrow. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, what an honor. First of all, I'd like to thank my wife for all her support over the last 25 years of teaching. All her support means so much to me. I would also like to start by saying what an honor it is to work for the Boise School District. I want to thank the school board and the superintendent for creating such a positive environment where students and teachers feel valued. I've worked in several school districts throughout the country. There is none like the Boise School District. I would also like to say what a privilege it is to work with a wonderful staff here at West Junior High. I am very grateful for the leadership of Janet Cherry, Bryce England, Liz Croy, and Jennifer Anderson. It is such an honor to work with individuals with disabilities. There is nothing like building relationships with students and watching them achieve post-secondary goals and activities. I am grateful for the Boise School District for providing so many opportunities for these students and for their future. It is so important for their job readiness and their independent living. But you cannot achieve success in a program without a great team. I would like to thank the paraprofessionals and the related service personnel, professionals, and our school psychologists for their interventions and hard work for helping these students achieve their goals. The input they provide as professionals is highly beneficial when it comes to academics, communication, and sensory needs. They make such a huge difference in these students' lives. I would also like to thank the teachers at West Junior High, the great counselors, the kind office staff, and the athletic department for their dedication to the inclusion of our students with disabilities. What a pleasure it is to work with a staff that creates an environment for learning and implementing activities that develop positive behavioral supports and social interaction and modeling. I've also appreciated the opportunity to work with such great parents. The students are the ones who inspire me, but it is the parent support that ensures their success. And I'd just like to finish on a personal note, how thankful my wife and I are that my two daughters get to attend and have the opportunity to attend the Boise School District. We are grateful for their positive experiences and the great teachers that have helped them. Their future looks so much brighter. Thank you very much.
So congratulations to both Shelley and Perry. It shows, the Boise School District is dedicated to educating all kids, and we have great professionals to help do that. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the ASB reports. I believe we're going to start with Frank Church, we hope.
All right, we're just going to need 1 second to get going real quick. And we also need sharing enabled. Yes. All right, is that coming up for everyone? All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, President Wagers and respected trustees of the Boise School Board, Superintendent Dennis, Deputy Superintendent Roberts, directors, and district administrators. My name's Oliver Wright, and this is my third year attending Frank Church. I'm graduating at the end of the 2022 school year. We want to start by congratulating all the students that made the honor roll. We had 76 students who earned a GPA of 3.0 or higher for quarter two. These students were treated to a gift bag filled with Frank Church swag and also a very helpful Dutch Bros gift card delivered by our wonderful vice principals during our Pathways period. Hopefully encouraging their fellow classmates and creating a fun way to celebrate their hard work and dedication to their education. Our new late start has increased the number of students being at school. Our daily attendance is over 80%. We hold an annual holiday dinner on December 16th, dressed in their best white button-ups or possibly their nicest hairnet. Our administration, teachers, and support staff, even some of you, served us our special holiday meal. We fed 257 students. The staff cooked 15 turkeys, 6 hams, and 200 pounds of potatoes, all topped off by a visit from Santa and cupcakes. None of this would have been possible without the hard work of Angela Hagans. We want to thank all of you for helping make it happen. Did you know that one blood donation can save up to 3 lives? On January 24th, National Honor Society and FCCLA hosted the Red Cross Blood Drive. We collected 47 units of blood and saved up to 141 lives. A massive thank you to Krispy Kreme Donuts, who donated a dozen donuts for every unit donated. It made saving lives even sweeter.
Hello, my name is Ayana Knowles. This is my 3rd year attending Frank Church High School, and I'm going to be graduating at the end of the 22 school year. February is Financial Aid Awareness Month, and on the 9th, we held a FAFSA completion event. We had 9 students and 5 parents come in to complete the application, 4 of whom fully qualified for the Pell Grant, which means over $6,000 of money to help people through college, and setting these students up for future success and education on in life. Also in February, we held Teen Retail. The Assistance League of Boise generously gave 60 Frank Church students the opportunity to take themselves shopping. Watch the video the students made about their experience. I have been lucky enough to be able to go on the teen retail trip for 3 years in a row. Each year I've come in like at a completely different time of my life and a totally different size. So each time I went, I was able to feel good in what I wore and like enjoying the new fit that I got. In our community center, we held a coat drive and we gave 185 coats out to junior high schools and high schools around the district. We also helped 125 families in November, 172 families in December, and 120 families in January. Some upcoming events we got here at Frank Church. We are still working on our details for spring prom. Hopefully we can get that to work out. And our 2022 graduation ceremony is Thursday, May 19th, Thursday, May 19th, held at Frank Church High School. Thank you for your time and attention. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from trustees for Frank Church High School or comments? Trustee Oppenheimer?
I would love to. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you for your presentation. It was great. I just love so much hearing about how you're supporting the culture within your school and supporting your students, and also supporting folks outside of your school. The blood drive, oh my gosh, couldn't come at a better time. It is so needed right now. So thank you for doing that. And we didn't get the sound for the video for the retail project. But if you could send that to us, we would love to see it.
Absolutely. We'll have it sent over.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Well, great job. You guys are doing a good job, and glad that you're having such a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from trustees? And just a great report overall. I mean, it's nice to, a really good package and well presented. So thank you again. And it's great to see good stuff happen at Frank Church. So have a good evening and thanks for your time.
You too. Thank you.
And with that, we will go ahead and move on to Timberline High School.
President Wagers, excuse the interruption, but if they have a video that has sound, we're not going to be able to get it to pipe through. So we might just want to let them know that before they.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Hi, Sophia. This is Dave Wagers. Just a heads up, if you have a video with sound, because we're having technical difficulties, we won't be able to hear videos with sound. So I don't know if that, hopefully that doesn't mess you up.
All right, perfect. We do not have a video, so.
But we can hear you loud and clear, which is great.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is the Timberline High School Board presentation. My name is Sophia Minnick. I'm the Student Body Community Environment Officer, and I'm a senior this year. Recently at Timberline, we've had a lot of stuff going on since coming back this semester. One of our biggest things was our Make-A-Wish game. We held this on February 5th. It was dinosaur themed. It was super cute, and it was for our kid, William. His dream was to go to Dinosaur Land. So to do that, we raised money through raffle baskets, in-person donations, and we set up an online donating process. So in that, we raised over $3,000 for him and his wish. Another thing that we've done recently was Crush for Your Crush. That actually happened today on Valentine's Day. We sold Crush Soda for $2, and you got to fill out a little heart and send it to somebody. So we did it just advertising as friends and sending love and kindness. And all the proceeds of that are going to the Women and Children's Alliance. And it was kind of fun just today to spread that community and share those Crush Sodas. Another program that we've started setting up this semester was our after-school tutoring. So Monday and Wednesdays after school until 4:30 and Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. It's open to LeBois and East students as well as Timberline. And it's just been a huge success so far. And it's kind of connected upperclassmen and younger classmen and just kind of connecting that community and just helping out where everyone needs it.
Hi, my name is Surbi Kashikar. So just following what Sophia said, Timberline has been doing pretty well in sports recently. Our cheer and dance teams went to state. Our dance team got 4th overall. Our girls basketball is headed to state at the end of this week, and boys basketball is headed to districts. Our girls wrestling team is also headed to districts next Thursday, and our choir and drama departments are putting on a dinner show throughout this week. As for clubs, DECA has a competition coming up, and 2 of our highest participation clubs, Tree Club and Key Club, have been doing pretty great in their individual activities. Tree Club is bringing awareness to our Timberline Wolfpack situation. So they have a post that Leonardo DiCaprio actually posted on his Instagram, bringing awareness to that. They have lesson plans filled out for our feeder schools that some of our younger students are going to be learning about the wolf situation, and so that they're aware about Tree Club as they come into Timberline. And they're also working on their documentary that we talked about in the last meeting that will be coming out in 2023, also about that topic. Key Club has been working with Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Meals on Wheels, just bringing awareness and making fun little activities for Key Club members and students at school so that they can learn about those things. They also have a kids tutoring program where we go next door to our elementary school, White Pine, and we tutor kids for about an hour. And it's a really good way to get them the help they need and also have them engage with older students. Our club department has been doing pretty well. We have new clubs starting up all the time, and people are able to voice their opinions and show their interests, and students are able to engage in these different communities and meet new people. So it's a really great way to do that.
So upcoming at Timberline, we also have a lot going on this semester. Next week is our Sweethearts Dance and Spirit Week. So in our absence of what we usually do, a December dance, we're doing kind of our winter formal as a Sweethearts Dance this year. So student council is working really hard to plan that and put that together and create a sense of community for Timberline and kind of bring back that fun dance spirit. We've also got a spring sports assembly coming up. This is just where we highlight what the winter sports accomplished, and then we go over spring sports and what they have coming up, as well as any other clubs or activities that are going on for the rest of the semester. Kindness Week is a week that we always do at Timberline right before spring break. It's put on by Wolf Connection, which is another leadership class in our school, as well as student council, and we work to celebrate students, teachers, and just overall kindness. So student council works on just an aspect of highlighting everyone. So we give free coffee to teachers and free ice cream to students to kind of say thank you. And then Wolf Connection does all of the Spirit Week and kindness themed days and activities. And so they put together a really great show and make sure that everyone feels included. We've also just got some smaller stuff coming up, intramurals, blood drive. And then at the end of April, we've got our academic assembly, in which we highlight seniors and all of their accomplishments, as well as we have prom and a Spirit Week coming up in April.
Last but not least, we want to make sure that all students are feeling included in our Timberline community. So to work on that and improve ourselves, every year we're trying to improve our royalty election system for dances and make sure that every gender identity is included, and making sure that we can have a more systematic voting system that way. So that's something we're working on. As for clubs, our Asian American Pacific Islander Club has celebrated Chinese New Year by passing out these red envelopes to all the students in the school and just kind of educated everybody about that. And so it was a really exciting experience for everybody at school, and it was a way for people to share their heritage. We also have posters up for all other holidays that are relating to that club. So yeah.
And that's all we have on behalf of Timberline. Are there any questions?
Great. Any questions or comments from trustees? Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you so much for your report. I think one of the biggest things that I took away from your report, and I think we all did, is really having those opportunities to learn outside of the classroom. And we always say how important it is, not only learning in the classroom, but with your clubs and your sports and your activities that you're doing. There's so much that's happening that you all are learning from, and also supporting one another. I love the Make-A-Wish. I feel like I saw that on social media or something, and how you supported William, which was fantastic. And then also the support that you are doing for the Women and Children's Alliance. So thank you for being so community driven, and also providing all those opportunities for all the students to learn inside and outside the classroom. It was great. Loved it.
Any other questions or comments from trustees? Thank you so much. Thanks for taking part of your night to let us know what's going on at Timberline. Great stuff. We appreciate what's going on in schools. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we can go ahead and move on to consent agenda items. Are there any consent agenda items that a trustee would like to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Trustee Gregory.
I move approval of the consent agenda items outlined in enclosures 1 through 20.
Is it second from Trustee Langley? So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And with that, we will go to reports and recommendations. And we will start with the process for determining boundaries for Dallas Harris Elementary School. I think we have Lynette Daw. So the best place.
Is there a microphone you want me to use? This is probably better if your presentation's ready. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Lynette.
Right here.
I stand at the.
Good evening, President Wagers, Superintendent Dennis, trustees. I'm here tonight to share with you the process that we plan to use for establishing the boundary for Dallas Harris Elementary School. This next slide we're going to skip, and then we're going to start with the boundary committee. So the very first step is to establish a boundary committee. And so we have done that. Right now, the boundary committee includes the principals from Adams and Riverside Elementary, the Timberline area director, supervisor of transportation and boundaries office. We also have the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association member on the committee. We have a couple of parents from Adams and Riverside Elementary on the committee. And then we also have from the city of Boise, a traffic planner that is also serving on the Boise School District Safety Busing Committee. And from Ada County Highway District, we have a member that is in the process of, he's leading the Barber Valley Neighborhood Plan that they are working on at Ada County Highway District. And then we also have the Boise School District Communications Specialist serving on this committee. Yes. So now the committee is established. We are in the process of just determining the need and introducing it. So that's what we're doing here tonight. It's just introducing that the time is here, that we're ready to establish that boundary for Dallas Harris Elementary. So during the boundary considerations from the committee is going to be looking at an enrollment analysis and the students that live in the neighboring schools and within the Barber Valley area. We're also going to be looking at housing developments and any future intended growth from the area. We are also looking at, I mentioned, neighboring school boundaries and also the junior high and high school feeder patterns and if there's any effect there. The committee will also be evaluating the walk routes and the busing routes, looking at safe ways for students to get to and from school. Once the committee has come up with a proposal, then we're going to take this proposal for a group discussion at the schools. And the intent of this is a small group discussion to introduce the committee's proposal, and we'll discuss what the needs were that were considered and discuss the communication plan for this proposal. The communication of this proposal. So once we have those small school meetings, it will be communicated to parents and patrons, and we will do this communication as many ways as possible. We'll have display board maps available at Adams Elementary and Riverside Elementary and any other schools that may be affected. We will also post it on the school's websites and in their newsletters. We will send out an email to anyone living in the area directly and mail a proposal to them so they have an opportunity to see the proposal and the exact boundary lines. And we will also be able to provide an online ArcGIS map link. So once that information is put out, we're going to have an open comment period for feedback. And we're proposing a 2-week comment period where we will also have comment cards available at the school that parents can pick up to provide feedback. And we will also be doing a Google survey to receive information that way as well. Once we get all of the comment review period is over, then we plan to, as a committee, we will go through and review those comments. And that will determine the next steps, whether the proposal is revised, if we need another comment period, and so on. And we'll just finish working through that process after the comment review. Once the comment review and those next steps are determined and we have a proposal ready to bring to the board, and then I'll be back at that time. And we're hoping that this process will be complete in April or May, but that's to be determined. And then lastly, after board approval of a new boundary, then we will communicate that to the residents that are affected. And we would like to have an open house the following year when it goes into play, potentially to 2023, where we will provide the opportunity for family members to come and visit the new school and visit their new boundary school if there's a boundary change to the other affected schools. And that's what the open house is to come and visit if we desire to do it at that point. And that is the process that we plan to go through, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Lynette. Any questions? Trustee Oppenheimer?
Thank you for that. I just have one question. With the small parent group discussions, you talked about meeting with parents at both Riverside and Adams. Do you plan to reach out to future parents of those schools, meaning parents that have children, birth to 5 that aren't quite in school yet, but will potentially be going there? Do you have a plan to reach out to those parents as well?
Trustee Oppenheimer, trustees, President Wagers. That's a great question. We hadn't discussed that yet, but on the committee, we have parents from a small number we have 1 from Adams and 2 from Riverside, and they live in the 2 separate areas of the Barber Valley area. And so we do have data on students that are enrolled in Boise school districts. So I would have to look at how can we gather the data of those people that have future children, because I don't have that data directly of addresses tied to kids that are not enrolled in Boise School District, but I'd be happy to explore.
Okay, great, thank you.
Trustee Schmidt?
President Wagers, thank you. I just, I noticed that you mentioned Adams and Riverside. Will that redistricting also affect other adjacent schools, or is your team just focused on the Dallas Harris school, or how do you see that working?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, trustees, great question as well. We just isolated it to Adams and Riverside purely because the kids that are living there right now, that's their enrollment school. There's been students that have been attending Adams, and then majority of the students are attending Riverside. So that's the only reason we've listed those 2 specific schools, but the boundary committee will determine how broad that boundary change needs to be.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Gregory?
Thanks for the presentation. And once again, I'm glad to see that we have planned a thorough process to do this so that there's multiple touch points where parents can see what's going on and having participated in a number of these boundary discussions, the process is as important as the decision is, that you get to the decision together with all the data before you. And I'm sure that your committee is going to have, need to be well supported with data so that they understand the implications. And that's an important part of this process. So I'm glad you're at it early, and good luck with the process. And I hope you meet your target.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from trustees for Lynette?
President Wagers.
Trustee Langley?
I see that we're including the ACHD there with their projected plan. Are we doing anything in conjunction with the city's growth plan? Or do we have a member that's looking into that, including that?
President Wagers, Trustee Langley, trustees. One of the members of the committee is from the city of Boise, and he's a senior transportation planner, and he will be able to participate on that. So I will mention to him specific to that plan and make sure that we include the city plan.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, these are difficult processes, but we do need to, like Trustee Gregory said, it's important to have a process behind it and then include as many stakeholders as possible. So thanks for your work, Lynette. With that, we will move on to F2, which is presentation of proposed update health and safety plan.
Good evening, trustees, President Wagers. To kick off the presentation today, I'm going to be reviewing the data slides that were shared with you over the weekend. And Want to go ahead and advance. The first slide, as you can see here, we've seen a dramatic decline in the number of positive cases that we're seeing across the school district. Back during the week of January 17th through the 23rd was our peak at 952 cases that week. The most recent week of February 7th through the 13th, we have dropped down to 141 positive cases in the district, which mirrors what we were seeing back in the fall. This is a look at that same data, but percentage. Go ahead and advance. This is a breakdown of that data based on secondary versus elementary. And you can see here that secondary students during the peak period did outpace elementary students. That wasn't necessarily the case throughout the year. As you can see, when the cases were lower, the elementary students were fairly even or slightly above the secondary students, but that was not the case during the peak of this most recent. Go ahead and advance. This is a look at the presumed positive cases. Again, these are the presumed positives, so not people who have tested positive, but are presumed. The data mirrors what we see with the positives, with the peak spike being the week of the 17th through the 23rd, and that's continued to decline as we move into last week. This is a breakdown and a look at the number of cases in the district that are associated with or participating in athletics. As you can see, it mirrors what we see with the spike. The 60 cases that we had during that week is high, but the percentage, when you look at the next slide, the percentage is very similar to what we saw in the overall percentage of the student population. So go ahead and advance that, Will. So it very much mirrored the spike that we had as a district. Next slide. These are the total number of quarantines, elementary versus secondary. You can see that we've had a pretty dramatic decline in our quarantines. And one of the factors, as was previously communicated, is we have modified how we are recording and counting our quarantines this second semester. That change and that shift is based off of the guidance from CDC and Central District Health and how we should be counting those quarantines, and a couple factors. One is in the first semester, we were counting those individuals who tested positive as a quarantine, as well as those individuals who had been exposed as quarantines. In essence, we were double counting because we were counting them in the positive columns in that data that I shared with you. We were also counting them in the quarantines. We're now only counting them, those individuals who have been exposed, unmasked exposure, and are quarantining at home. Those are the only individuals that are reported as quarantining in the data set since the start of the new semester. Go ahead and advance, Will. This is a look at that same data, but percentage. And this is a breakdown of that data, students versus staff. And let me get there with you. As you can see, the student data as far as quarantines outpacing the staff data, which is good to see. That's an important factor when we look at our operational capacity, is the number of staff members that are out. And when we were struggling last year, when we were remote, one of the problems is operational capacity. And so the number of staff having to quarantine due to exposure is something that's important that we look at. Go ahead, Will. And speaking of operational capacity, these are the fill rates that we have been seeing. As you can see, in the month of January, our overall fill rate was down to 61%. We were at 74% for certified. That was far lower than what we had seen through October, November, and December. But we're starting to see a rebound, which is great. For the month of February to date, We're at 73% for our overall fill rate and 82% for our certified fill rate. So we're starting to see improvement. I think today our certified fill rate was actually at 83.9%. So going up just incrementally each day, which is great. This next slide is just a breakdown. You can see the total number of absences in the district by month, as well as the number of jobs that needed a substitute, as well as those that actually filled and then the unfilled. And you can see back in January, we did have a spike in the unfilled jobs. And there's a lot of reasons for that, I believe. I believe that with the spike in cases, I think there were some substitutes who were again hesitant to pick up jobs. Many of our substitute teachers are retired teachers themselves. And so I do think that played a factor. The job market is another factor that I think we're all dealing with in employment. And I think our substitutes are in that pool of potential employees who have a lot of opportunities for employment. And so people who may have been substituting for us in the semester may have found other employment after the holidays. And I believe that's my final slide, and I'd be happy to answer any questions before turning it over to Director Walker.
Any question on the data? Trustee Schmidt?
It's President Walker, or President Wagers, sorry. You mentioned that the first semester numbers were in a sense double counted. Is there a way that you can look at that, and how would the second semester numbers compare with corrected first semester numbers?
Yeah, President Wagers and Trustee Schmidt, we could absolutely go in and take out the number of positive and presumed positive cases from those counts, and that would give us exactly a more apples to apples comparison first semester to second semester, just by simply subtracting out the number of positives and presumed positives. So that's one thing we could do. But the other big shift is now the quarantine is only based on unmasked exposure and those that are choosing to quarantine from home. So that's the factor that we can't necessarily get an apples to apples, but we could certainly do the other.
Okay, yeah, I was just interested if you had a feel for what those would look like from a comparison or a general comparison standpoint.
President Wagers and Trustee Schmidt, we could absolutely do that, and I could get that back to the board.
Okay.
Slide six too has our positives and presumed positives. President Wagers. If you want to quickly subtract it yourself.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. Any other questions?
No Wagers.
Trustee Haas.
Good evening, Director Smith. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So other than the double counting on absentees and quarantines, I guess, are there any other factors that you took into account, or you think why absentees had gone down or quarantines had gone down other than the counting?
Yeah, President Wagers and Trustee Haas, I think the other contributing factor is that other shift that we have made where we're only counting those individuals who have had an exposure that was an unmasked exposure and that are choosing to quarantine from home rather than the optional quarantine in school. And so that's the other factor that would cause that significant reduction in quarantines from the first semester to the second semester. Any other questions?
Okay. Anything else on the data presented by Nick?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Next, Director Walker.
All right. Good evening, President Wagers and trustees. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to take a few moments to bring everyone up to speed on the work that's been done over the past month that got us to tonight with the presentation that you have in front of you. As we mentioned last month, we were putting together an endemic planning committee. That committee was made up of parents, students from each quadrant. Parents, we had 3 parents. One was from the Boise High quadrant, one from the Timberline quadrant, and one from the Border quadrant. And then we had a student from each of the 4 traditional high schools. that participated on the committee with us. Additionally, we had BEA President Stephanie Myers, and then two other individuals from their exec council. We had multiple nurses that participated in the process, multiple building administrators, and then all the area directors participated in this committee. And what I would tell you, the work was amazing. We ended up meeting all together. I think we met over 6 times, and 3 of those were as a whole group. And then we also had individual subcommittee meetings, and just the work that was done by this group was just unbelievable in a short amount of time. And we want to thank everyone that participated in that. Any questions related to the group that we put together?
Trustee Schmidt?
Would you say that you had diverse views represented, or do you think it was pretty unified group on those different committees?
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, I would definitely say we had diverse views. Not everyone was in agreement on everything, and we definitely had both sides. I mean, you can take the example when it comes to masking, there were different viewpoints represented on that. When we talked about things like contact tracing, quarantining, there were different views represented in the work that was done.
Thank you.
All right, and then after the work of that committee was completed, prior to sending it out to the public, we also vetted it through our principals, through a group of health service professionals in our district. We also ran it by the medical professionals that we work with, and also with the board through board committees. One of the things that came up in that I thought was interesting was, and we ended up making a change before we sent out publicly. Originally, we were calling it an endemic plan. And I think what we determined was that was kind of a loaded word and had a lot of stuff that came with that. And we felt like using the words language of Boise School District Health and Safety Plan fit more appropriately with what we were trying to accomplish and put together for us to move forward. So that's something that changed since December, January. Any questions about that?
President Wagers.
Trustee Langley?
You say there's a lot loaded with the word endemic, and I think I understand what you're saying, but can you expound?
President Wagers, Trustee Langley, who gets to declare it's an endemic? Who gets to declare what an endemic plan looks like? You're getting into a national, worldwide conversation that we felt it's more appropriate to look at it from a district level. And that's why we came back to Boise School District Health and Safety.
Great, thank you.
Yep. All right, with that, we will begin the presentation. Next slide. So just an introduction, our updated health and safety plan provides a safe, high quality educational experience while remaining respectful to national and local health guidance related to infectious disease. 2 things to point out here: remain respectful to national and local health guidance. Our thought in that means we get the input. It doesn't always mean that we do what they maybe would like to see us do, but we are respectful in getting their input and considering that in the overall challenge that we have. Second thing or actually, if you can go back. Oh. The other key thing to point out, the committee really felt we needed to get away from COVID moving forward, and we need to focus more around infectious disease because that's broader and encompasses, because it could be COVID, it could be something else in the long term. Next slide. So why revise the health and safety plan? So an updated health and safety plan provides the following. It's a path for us to move forward. It includes key infection control practices learned in the pandemic, adopted as new routine. manages our response to a more predictable spread of infectious disease, and provides a clear and sustainable approach to mitigation. Next slide. Interests. Interests have been a big priority for the last 2 years as we've moved our way through this. The committee really felt that, I want to point out the second and third bullet. These were two big ones for the committee. They felt like it needed to be clear, consistent, and sustainable moving forward. And then we need to minimize the impact on students, families, and staff. Those were two key interests that, as we go through this plan, you're going to see that highlighted throughout. Any questions about the interests?
President Waiters.
Trustee Gregory.
Director Walker, I actually just love this page because it brings a focus on where we want to be and how we're going to, the attitudes and the issues that we have moving forward. And I think that it is consistent with our district values, and the way we do our work is to highlight our interests. And I kind of always come back to this page as a way to measure things against. So I appreciate you beginning this document with the interests and issues at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. President Wagers?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Director Donovan.
Okay, so I'm going to go into the key mitigation strategies. I'm going to first, click into the school health and safety plan. So if you remember with the pandemic plan, we detailed out every aspect of a school operation. In this version, when we are in this stage, it would be very broad areas. So the mitigation that we would have would be facilities and operations would continue to monitor and maintain ventilation systems. Custodial staff will continue recommended surface disinfection procedures. Again, thinking this is for any kind of infectious disease or any kind of medical situation like that. The next one we would follow would be follow the district procedure and protocols for when someone becomes sick. And we'll have Tamara Fredrickson will go through that in detail in a next slide here. Face coverings at this point for all students, staff, and visitors will become optional. We would continue to train and educate staff and students and parents on those key infection control practices of hand washing and sanitizing procedures. Again, good for all kinds of infectious diseases. The school operation part that will continue, one thing that we have found successful in the implementation of the pandemic was that every teacher would continue to have a digital learning platform, Google Classroom for grades 3 through 6, and Seesaw in grades K through 2. That has been a benefit moving to that one-to-one device for anything. Now it's better communication for our families and better communication for our teachers with our students. This also helps if we do have students sick for any reason, short-term or long-term, they can jump into the Google Classroom and continue their education. We'll return back to pre-pandemic visitor protocols, school activities, field trips, dances, all of those things, and continue to educate families of the protocols for the illness procedure. Again, we're going to go into great detail in that in a few slides here. One thing that this next part on accommodations, this was something we had before the pandemic, before COVID. We had many students who, for whatever reason, maybe going through cancer treatment or different things where they could not attend school or they needed accommodations. Schools have tools. The 504 accommodation process is one tool that we can put in accommodations to help students. But we now also have Boise Online School for those families that if there is a longer term illness or a longer term reason that they cannot attend school, and they need more than just Google Classroom, they can jump into the Boise Online School and continue their education. In the past, it was a homebound services that we provided. This is much richer. So this, again, we'll continue this going forward. And staff, the same with staff. We have staff that could potentially have issues that they need accommodations for medical or other issues, and that we would take them also, like we have in the past, continue going through the ADA accommodations. So back to the original slide, the main key mitigation strategies going forward would be the continuation of the training following the illness procedure, and facilities and operation continuing to monitor and maintain ventilation systems, which we think is huge for any kind of situation. Any questions on any of the key mitigation or the slide speaking about our school plans in general?
Trustee Hobbs. Good evening, Director Donovan. Could you remind me what the pre-pandemic reserve protocols are?
So that would be just like allowing visitors in the school. They set up, teachers set up schedules for parent volunteers, people coming in to just visit the school, all those sorts of just opening up our schools in general.
Trustee Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about the, I really like having the continuation of the digital learning platforms. I think that that's a good lesson learned over these past couple of years. I love it. One question I have here, it says consider accommodation for those at risk of serious illness for any infectious disease and families who don't feel comfortable sending their students for the enrollment for the online school. So will that be limited to, will the future of the Boise online school be limited to just, I guess, that sector, or will it be continued for everyone?
President,
did I ask that right? I don't know.
President, Trustee Oppenheimer.
You know what I'm
actually, it will go forward. It's going forward based on enrollment. I mean, we have lots of students participating, much more than we thought we would, and they are not necessarily there because of COVID.
Okay.
They are there for a variety of reasons. So very good question. Yes, it's an option for students that have medical issues, but it's also for a lot of other students.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yep, thank you for the question.
Trustee Langley?
Just a follow-up question to Trustee Oppenheimer's great question. How many students can we really accommodate online, in the next few years or immediately, or, what does that look like for our district?
President Wagers, Trustee Langley. Good question. So far, we are able to accommodate the students that we have. We do have other districts reaching out because of this. I mean, online school is a good option for a lot of families. So we're.
President Wagers, can I jump
Superintendent.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
So Trustee Langley. You just left me for a second. I think we can accommodate as many as we have, provided we have the FTE to do that. So the only limit upon that is once we set the FTE for the year, that kind of determines the limit of the school. That's true whether it's a brick and mortar or a online school, but we can accommodate as many kids as want to participate in that. It's just harder to do in the middle of the year.
Thank you. I mean, I saw us do it.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Okay. Anything else for Trustee Schmidt?
Director Donovan, you mentioned some of the online platforms for the teachers and the students.
Yep.
I know I have a little bit of personal experience with our family using those. Our boys were sick recently and were able to do that, but how long have the teachers been using those systems? Are they proficient at it? Do you have any feedback from the teachers at how effective that is for the students?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt. Good question. Luckily, we have amazingly talented teachers, few of which are here, who have, due to the urgency of the pandemic, they were able to jump in and learn the platform. We had teachers that the first summer out preparing lessons. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. We're now in year two. Seems like a lot longer, but we will continue to train and continue to provide support, but you cannot imagine the excellent work that our teachers have done. Lots of school districts would take years to move into a one-to-one device situation. So kudos to them.
That's great, and I appreciate that effort by the teachers. Do you have any feedback from them on how effective that's been for the students who do have to leave for some reason and then are able to come back? How effective are those tools, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think that what we're seeing right now is the teachers it's much easier to do that than try to prepare packets or try to get kids caught up when they come back. I think it's been helpful this year. It's smoother than even last year was. Of course, they continue to want to do more for students, which is amazing, but it's a work in progress.
President Wagers, can I also jump in?
Sure.
Trustee Smith, I think your question is a good one, and I think that what we probably need to do at the end of this year, since this will be the second year, you don't want to change a platform in the middle of the year. So I think we do need to go back to the teachers and get a little bit more insight into how they're viewing it going, and if there is another platform we could be looking at, we can have that discussion. But I think at this stage of the game, I think one of the reasons that Director Donovan is kind of hesitating is we don't want to send a message to our teachers we're going to change it in the middle of the year. We may need to take a look at it at the end of the year. Okay, fair enough.
Trustee Gregory.
Thank you, President Wagers. Director Donovan, I'm looking at the part that says maintain and monitor ventilation systems, et cetera. And I just have to salute the custodial staff and our facilities staff. I think that they've gotten to know this aspect of our buildings better than ever before. It's kind of like if you build a building and you kind of make an assumption that you have that it was built well, et cetera, and so forth. And then all of a sudden you have to look at something specific. And I know that we've been able to put pandemic resources toward buildings, and have been able to go out and assess buildings one by one to see what the situation is. And I also have to say that I'm just so glad that we've moved ahead in the past 12x years on bond projects that have made this much, much easier. Because we've been able to retire really old schools that would not have met the standards that we have today, which has allowed us to direct resources toward other buildings that needed to happen. So I assume that work is kind of ongoing, but we have done a lot already, right?
Trustee, you're absolutely right. Your comments were greatly appreciated. We have done a lot, and the resources from the financial resources have been great to get some of those up to speed.
Yeah, even in like consent agenda items, if you notice in those, we're investing in higher level filters, more systems in our schools on a regular basis. And so this has been an ongoing thing. We know that ventilation is a big piece of this, and we are trying to make our schools as well ventilated and as well filtered as possible. Anything else for Director Donovan? No, thank you.
Okay, I'm only going to be up here for a minute because Tamara is really going to be the person who talks about some of these things in depth. But so Director Donovan and I had the subcommittee for mitigation, and she's kind of gone through most of these things because they're part of the new school plans. But face coverings for all students, staff, and visitors will be optional in the updated health and safety plan. We will return to pre-pandemic visitor and volunteer protocols and school activities. The fourth bullet was something that was really important, though, to our subcommittee in particular, and that is that we want to really take the illness procedure that we've always had more seriously. So we had, for instance, one of our parents made the comment, we used to kind of take it as a point of pride to like power through when you would like come to work and you wouldn't feel great and you just sort of power through and be there and just kind of tough it out. And what we all kind of discussed as a team was that The illness procedure guidelines don't encourage that because that's how you get disease spreading in the schools. So the illness procedures that Tamara will go through, we really want to give those the support. The nurses and the health techs have always been, they'll counsel like a kiddo who doesn't feel good and has a fever to go home and then encourage the parents to keep them home. But we really want that to be sort of a team effort. So two of the things that we felt were important was we want to do some public service announcements that really encourage students, staff, and parents to be aware of the updated illness procedures. And then also to give health services staff training to ensure that they're implementing the district-wide procedures consistently. And the other thing that was kind of a caveat to all of these key mitigation strategies is, of course, as we're going through this, we'll continue to monitor district data if we ever need to transition back to the pandemic plan. We had a couple students on our subcommittee, and they did ask about that. They said, well, what would happen if we have a spike? What happens next? And so the asterisk is an important part of the plan that we continue to monitor current district data. One of the things that came up was even like seasonal illnesses, like we can get hit with a really hard flu. And so we would want to monitor data. And a lot of these things are designed to be good for any kind of infectious disease. That's why we made that kind of shift to thinking more broadly. So I'm going to turn it over to Tamara because she's going to talk through the health services, health and safety plan, especially the illness procedure.
President Wagers, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dennis, good evening. Based on the identified interests that Director Walker spoke to on slide 4 and input over the past couple of weeks that we've received, you will notice that we made significant changes to the health services, health and safety plan. Specifically, can you click into that, please? Thank you. Nope, sorry. The health services, health and safety, perfect. Specifically, you will notice that we eliminated the COVID testing procedure and the isolation, quarantine, and contact tracing procedure. We did this because we recognize that those procedures are really based on the fact that we have universal masking. And without universal masking, we don't see contact tracing being feasible, especially with our current community transmission rates, as well as our current manpower that we have in schools. What we did do, though, is really focus on the Boise School District illness procedure because we feel like this is going to be key in our operations. You'll notice that the procedure has the same format that it's always had, but we simplified it as we revised it and tried to make it a lot so it's more understandable and user-friendly for our families and our employees. It's based on symptoms, as you can see there, and we took into account that the individual's health baseline, the health conditions they may already have. So you'll note in specifics that we're asking individuals to stay home from school or work if they're not feeling well, based on if they have a new or unusual symptom for them, different from what they might have already based on their current health status. And then at the bottom of the document, as you scroll down, there are guidelines for when an individual can return to school or work. And again, these are very similar to our pre-pandemic levels. Any questions about the illness procedure?
President Wagers.
Trustee Haas.
So you mentioned that this updated health and safety plan for health services, that contact tracing would be eliminated based on the fact of that there's universal masking, but if this new updated plan goes into effect, masking would be optional. So would you then put back into place contact tracing?
President Wagers, Trustee Haas, good question and good clarification. So we continue to contact trace now when anybody is unmasked in the school setting. But with going to optional masking and potentially a majority of individuals being unmasked in the school setting, and our current community transmission levels, we are concerned that contact tracing would not be feasible in that sort of setting. And so that's why they weren't included in this health and safety plan, but we do continue to use those procedures now as a part of our pandemic plan.
Make sense? Any follow-up?
So just for clarification, this is a health and safety plan and it's not solely based on COVID, which we don't contact trace every health and safety illness that would be, this is addressing. And I understand that COVID is, in a pandemic, we are contact tracing COVID, but what we're saying is that in an endemic COVID world, it's an illness like the flu, et cetera, and that we are moving to a non-tracing. When we implement this, it would be one of the many illnesses this would cover and we wouldn't trace it. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm just clarifying.
Trustee Langley, yes. Okay, that is exactly what we're thinking at this point, because as you said, there's many contagious illnesses that are not required to contact trace.
And likely then we would be utilizing these symptoms that you've given us for our staff, students, and families to trace the illness for themselves. And then come back utilizing those, the bottom part of the sheet.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Trustee Langley, we really do feel like our illness procedure is a key pivotal point of our operations plan, because what we're doing is asking, back to Director Anderson's point, we're really asking individuals to stay home when they're not feeling well.
Okay. Thank you. That was perfect.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you, President Rogers. I just have a kind of a random question, but it's on here, so I have to ask. Didn't we change our policy on pink eye like a year or two ago, 2 years ago? I know that's a silly question, but because I remember, long time ago, you have to stay home if you have pink eye. Didn't we change it? Or am I totally making that up? Now you can go with pink eye.
Trustee Oppenheimer, I'm not aware of any change.
Am I the only one?
A condition like pink eye, actually, pink eye is kind of a layman's term, and it can be related to allergies or infection. And that's why we ask individuals, if they don't have a history of allergies, to get evaluated, because it could potentially be contagious in the school setting.
Okay. I may have made that up.
You don't have pink eye, do you?
No.
Okay.
I know.
Were there diseases before COVID?
No, I just remember something about pink eye. I'm like, oh, we used to have to stay home for pink eye. And then, oh, was it head lice?
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't pink eye at all. It was head lice. You can go. Okay. Got it. I'm sorry for the confusion. I just saw that and then I got confused.
Any other questions for Supervisor Frederickson? No, thank you, Tamara.
Good evening, President Wagers, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Dennis. So as Director Walker described for you earlier in this presentation, that we received a lot of input on this plan before we sent it out to staff, students, and patrons and parents. The main group that helped us was the Endemic Planning Committee, which Director Walker described the makeup of that committee earlier. We also worked on it as a DSC cabinet, and we let our principals view it prior to it going out. And Administrator Frederickson showed it to some of her nurses, some representations of the nurses, and we shared it with our local health professionals. After we got input from all of those groups, we then have the plan that we sent out to staff, students, parents, and patrons, and we asked for their feedback. So if you could link into that feedback link, please. And go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we had 9,397 responses to our feedback form. We embedded a video description of the plan, and we had about a third of the people watch the video. We also had the plan linked into the feedback form. So hopefully they either looked at the plan or watched the video. And then we had about half of our people who took the survey who left comments. I don't know if you looked through, I'm sure you looked through all those comments. There were several, 300 and some pages of them. When I would say the summary of the comments for me was on one topic, which was masks, and it was based on our current conditions. That's how I felt the response of the comments were mainly focused. Next slide, please. Trustee Gregory, I think that people also liked our interests. We got a lot of people who appreciated the interest that we had there. The two that kind of rose to the top a little bit were their interest in providing a high quality comprehensive education 5 days a week. And then also making sure that we are mindful and supportive of the physical, social, and emotional well-being of not only our students and our staff, but also our families and our community. When we asked for feedback on the key mitigation strategies, more than half, or about half, thought that all of them were important. And then it was broken down a little bit by each number. About 638 felt they didn't have enough information, and about 788 respondents felt that none of them were important. And then the next question we asked was whether or not staff, students, parents, and patrons supported or opposed the key mitigation strategies. And you can see how their responses were for those 4 categories. Any questions on this feedback information?
Any questions or comments from trustees? There was a lot, which is good. I mean, that's what we want. We want folks engaged. We want that to happen. I mean, so I think that's important. So we created at least a tool where folks had a chance to input to the board, input to your committee. That, you know, that was done. So any other questions or comments?
I would just add that it wasn't just response to the survey, but we've received emails directly to the trustee email address, and a lot of submissions through the general feedback form as well. Hundreds
on both.
Yes.
And thousands on this, and
yes.
Several hundreds of each kind. Several hundreds.
Great. Well, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Roberts.
Thank you, Director Famer.
Good evening, President Wagers, trustees. So as you know, this has kind of 2 parts to this. So first, there would be the consideration of the plan, the health and safety plan, and action item on that. And then once that's done, we would go into talking about an implementation date. Are there any questions about the plan that we can answer before you deliberate on that?
Any more questions for the administration on the plan? You know, so what, you know, the makeup of the plan, why we're doing it. I think we'll kind of get that. Trustee Gregory.
I have one question. Deputy Superintendent Roberts, how do you envision this plan becoming institutionalized? As in, what if there's something that wants to be tweaked? How does this evolve so that it's not something that has to come to the board for every little thing, because that's not efficient and effective way to operate in terms of health and safety plan. So how does it go from this board approval of this plan to something that resides with our nurse and her staff and is part of our district training?
President Wagers, Trustee Gregory, unless you told us otherwise, once this plan goes into effect, and as we see things in the plan that need to be tweaked, we would most likely just do that and make sure then it was posted for the public to see, for our school staff to see. We'd make sure to inform them, and we could also let you know as well. Because it wouldn't necessarily be board policy, we wouldn't have to bring it, for revisions in first read and second read. But I think that it's very likely we would have tweaks to it. So we're going to see things that work and things that don't work. If it was a change that we felt like would really change our operations or the meat of the plan, we would definitely inform you of that and bring that to you.
Follow up. Just say that our external communication would be really important at that point. Just things like pink eye or lights or whatever, you know, that our parents and our populations know and understand, so that our buildings know and understand. So, you know, I could just see that we would need to move it to a level of just operations instead of something that rises up to a board level all the time, because you need it to just kind of be institutionalized so that parents know.
President Wagers, Trustee Gregory, I think that is what we do on a regular basis. So I know that Supervisor Frederickson holds regular meetings with the health staff. And so through those meetings is where they talk about different ways they might be doing something in the nurse's office or handling some type of an issue. And then it's same with our directors. They meet with our principals in quad meetings if we have, you know, like a small change or a tweak.
Oh, so we do have a loop.
Yes, for sure.
Has things that go out and the things that are evaluated on the ground where things are implemented, so that there's a process there. Okay.
And it's nice in the key mitigation strategy. I mean, we built in a PSA. We built in things to how do you get this information out, not only to our staff, but out to our parents and, you know, students as well. So I think that's an important piece of it. Any other, Trustee Schmidt?
Thanks, President Wagers. Director, Deputy Superintendent. I noticed that it was highlighted that some of the things have been kind of removed. Specifically, I think Trustee Haas was talking about contact tracing and the difficulty of that. Masking is obviously a key topic for parents on both sides of this issue. Are there specific situations in this, in either in the procedures or in what you're proposing, where we would still say, yes, masks are required? Or is this truly a masks optional and we're trusting people to do the right thing when they have those symptoms?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, I do believe what we're saying is that we're trusting people to make that decision if we move to this plan. I do think, though, we're also saying that we will continue to watch the data. And if there's a need to go back to masking, we would probably come back to the board and ask you to do that if we need to do that. I also believe there could be an instance where, let's say it's midday, student's not feeling well, we're waiting for the parent to get there. We might ask that student to put on a mask in the nurse's office while we're waiting for the parent to get there.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Deputy Superintendent Roberts? So with that, to move to discussion, we probably need a motion. Trustee Gregory.
President Wagers, I move approval of the proposed updated health and safety plan for Boise School District.
Moved. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Seconded by Trustee Smith. So once again, as a reminder, so this gives us an opportunity to discuss. This is not implementing the plan. This is just the plan itself that we're talking about at this point. And I will try and keep discussion to that among trustees. But if anybody would like to start on the plan, that would be great. Or any questions? I mean, maybe we've got Trustee Gregory.
Well, I'll just say that this is what this is the work that we said we would do the last board meeting we were here. That under the leadership of Superintendent Dennis, he said, we know that we need to move from a pandemic to an endemic, and we need a plan to move that in that direction. A month ago is different from today, and I appreciate all the work that has gone into it as we all deal with something that nobody asked for. And so I appreciate the input, particularly from the committee that served and our nurse professionals, which Tamara has such a team throughout the district that has managed this. So I feel like the input that has gone into this plan has been very deep and thorough. And, we're not trying to become provide all of medical care for every child. we're trying to run a school. And so the parameters I think that they've set there are workable to help our students stay safe and healthy and keep our schools functioning and moving forward. So, just kind of looking at our procedures and protocols from before the pandemic and taking the opportunity to refresh those and say, is this meaningful and significant? I think that's part of the work that has been done to help shift us to a better operational place.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you, President Wagers. I'll just make a comment that I really appreciate the work that has gone into this plan. I know that you all have spent hours and hours on this. I also really appreciate that we are calling it just strengthening our health and safety, right? We should be doing that anyway. And so we've learned a lot over the past 2 years, and things have evolved. And as we've learned, I think just any time that we can strengthen our health and safety, that's the number one thing that we need to make sure our kids and families are healthy and safe, and our teachers. So I really appreciate that as well. I think that it's thorough. I like that it is the strategies. I really like the illness procedure. I think it's clear and consistent. I don't think it's open to questions like, oh, what do I do here or there? Pink eye, stay home, right? But I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into this and all of the work with everybody involved in the feedback. So I just want to say thanks.
Any other trustees? Trustee Schmidt?
Yeah, just to thank you, President Wagers. As I was thinking about this and preparing, I guess one of the things that came to my mind is that as the Boise Independent School District, we don't have to lead in the nation in doing these things. We also don't have to follow what other districts are doing. The only thing we have to lead in is what's best for our students and our district in this area, based on the data that we have and what's going on around us today. And so I appreciate the effort that was put in specifically, and I asked Director Walker about the diversity of the committees. I appreciate that there were various viewpoints that were represented in putting this together, because this is such a divisive issue, a very sensitive topic. And I appreciate the fact that you and your team, Superintendent Dennis, did bring the plan as you committed. So thank you.
A lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work.
He did a really good job.
But kind of on that, we had the luxury, which we haven't had, of developing a plan versus when we started this pandemic, we just had to do it. And, so that's and we did it quickly. We still did it within a month. And I think what it's done is prepared us. This gives us a preparation for the next, we end with next steps. That's the key thing. It is a preparation. If we don't prepare and if we don't come up with well thought out plans, then we'll never get buy-in, and we'll never get, and we have lots of stakeholders. We have students, we have staff, we have families, we have community members. How do we make sure that each one of those persons, whether, it comes up with how they want it done, but we still take that into account. And I appreciate that at least we have a plan in place that we now can decide if we adopt or not. So I appreciate, the trustees prodding and the administration, of course, always doing. And it's a ton of work, but it's important, because if we don't do it, we're not ready, and we got to be ready. It's too big an organization not to be ready. Any other comments or debate? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to approve the Boise School District updated health and safety plan. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So the plan is approved. Now we will move to the next agenda item, and that is the implementation of the updated health and safety plan. So with that, I think we'll go back to Deputy Director Roberts.
President Wagers, trustees. So our recommendation tonight, as we have done what we've done all along, We've monitored your community transmission, this, spread in our schools, the operational impact, and then input from healthcare professionals. We've also looked at other states that have reached their peak earlier in January to try to determine what was the best state that we felt like we should implement this new plan. And most of the other states around us, like for example, Oregon reached their peak the week of the 20th of January. They're ending their mask mandate at the very end of March. Nevada, the week of the 17th of January, and they're lifting theirs on the 10th of February. New Jersey, they have their peak the 7th of January. They're ending theirs on the 7th of March, which is we looked at different things. We felt that it would be very judicious of us to wait a few more weeks in order to make sure that our numbers keep going down, that we've truly reached our peak in this area. So with that in mind, we are making the recommendation to implement the updated health and safety plan on March 28th, 2022. We want to make sure that our positive cases continue to decline because they're still higher than when we came to you in November to talk. We thought we were going to come in with a recommendation to go masks optional. And then we heard about the Omicron variant coming, but at that point we only had 30 cases in our schools. And right now we're still at 141. Also, what's really important to us is that March 28th date marks the start of the fourth quarter, where that way if families do choose to transition to Boise Online School, it won't be in the middle of one of their semesters. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, so right now we can ask questions about the administration's recommendation. So are there any questions? Trustee Haas?
One of the questions I have is, are we currently in critical standards of care in the community?
President Wagers, Trustee Haas, we are still in crisis standards of care. I will also share a data point that January found its highest month of admissions to the Children's Hospital here in Boise. They had 50 admissions in January. They'd only been averaging 10 admissions a month up until that point of January. So that'd be another thing we'd like to continue to watch and make sure declines.
Any other questions from trustees for the administration on their recommendation? Trustee Schmidt?
Deputy Superintendent Roberts, I understand the logic behind looking at a March date for implementation. Have you considered the feasibility of doing it any sooner than that?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, we've talked about several different dates. We felt like this was probably the one that would be our safest option to give us some more time to watch the numbers and to see that we truly reached a peak. We're truly coming down to those numbers. And again, the operational side of that's really important to us as well. And that we want to, families, if they feel uncomfortable with that, then they can switch to the Boise Online School. So we have considered other dates. Of course, this is up to you to decide if you want to go with that date, and you can always, make a recommendation to go sooner.
Just as a follow-up, do you feel that if we were to recommend a sooner date, operationally, how would that affect your ability to run the district?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, that is a concern. So if our numbers aren't down far enough, I do worry that we will see an increase in absenteeism without the masks, and especially for our staff as well. And January was tough. It was a tough month for us to cover classrooms. We had everybody from the district office out covering classrooms. So that would be a concern. We feel like that date is our safest to look at not having to have any classroom shut down or school shut down, and to be able to finish the year out being in school full time.
Any other questions for Trustee Haas?
Are you looking at trends like I guess we did, coming back to the December board meeting? Numbers were decent, but one of the trends that I think that was looked at is the upcoming Omicron storm. So are you gauging projections on trends, I guess, based on those kind of factors?
President Wagers, Trustee Haas, I would say yes, we are. We're seeing that around us, all those numbers are going down, and those states peaked a few weeks ago. So those are the trends we've been looking at. But again, if around us started to go up again, and if our numbers started to go up again, we would definitely be looking at that if we felt we needed to ask for a later date for that, or to not go masks optional.
Can I actually get it to put your mask on, please? Thank you.
President Wagers.
Trustee Langman?
Do you know how many in-school days that is until, including, spring break from now until then?
I'm going to say it's probably 24 school days. I'd have to look at a calendar. Really quick.
I could count it really quickly.
Any other questions? At this point, we can go back and ask administration. Once we get into debate. Okay. Good? No.
Yeah.
No. Anytime's good.
Can we buy that every other school district in the state?
I'm sorry, we're not taking input from.
Of course not. We never do.
We've taken a lot of input.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, we need to have a motion to have further trustee discussion. So I'd like to know if any trustee would like to make a motion.
Motion that we have further discussion on the implementation date.
Okay, so we actually need to have a motion
For the.
to discuss. So
I make the motion that we discuss
So what do you want to discuss?
the recommendation by the district. For
Okay,
the
so
implementation.
I need a motion that we're moving that motion. That we take the recommendation. We don't have to approve it. There's nothing, if we make that motion, it can be amended, it can be adjusted, any of those things can be done with it. But we have to have a motion to discuss timeframes, if that makes sense. So we have to have a date involved. Okay.
I move that.
Go ahead, trustee Hawes.
I move that we have a discussion on the proposed March 28th implementation date of the plan.
Okay, so actually you move the plan, move the implementation date as recommended by thing, because we can't move discussion, we have discussion about a motion, if that makes sense.
So
And just because you're moving that does not mean that that's what you're gonna vote for, it's just so we can have discussion. Does that make sense? So if you just take.
You have to move to approve the date.
Okay, I move to approve the administration's proposal for the March 28th implementation date.
Okay, great. Is there a second so we can have discussion?
I'll second.
Second from trustee Oppenheimer. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the administration's recommendation of March 28th, 2022. Now we are fully open for discussion over that. That doesn't mean, but we'll go from there. So would anybody like to lead off on discussion?
President Wagers.
Trustee Langley.
So do we know how staff have responded to the surveys and how they feel about the implementation date? Because I'm concerned, let me give you background. I'm concerned about keeping the schools open and our staff and teachers being comfortable.
President Wagers, trustee Lamb, I do, in discussions we've had with teachers and with principals, I do think that them having ample time to plan and think about how this will look like in their classroom without masks, I think is an important thing. However, in the survey, do you have that?
Yes, I do. President Wagers, trustee Langley, speaking specifically to face covering.
Yes.
Okay. So with our information that we got from the survey, our secondary students, there were 1,500 that responded to the question. 787 opposed, mask optional, 724 support. With staff members, there were 1,740 responded, 834 opposed, 906 support. And with parents, guardians, and patrons, there were over 6,000 that responded, and about 2,700 opposed and 3,300 support.
President Wagers, trustee Langley, when I figured out the percentages for staff, I was 52% of the staff that supported going masks optional, 48% opposed.
So very reflective of the rest of our population.
We were looking for input. It wasn't necessarily a vote by all staff, if I might say that. It was really, we were looking for input on that.
So, and just to clarify, so how many staff answered that question?
There were
About
1,740.
And we actually have about
4,500.
4,500, so we only got about a third of the staff actually gave input. Okay, just want to make sure we have all the information out there. Any other, I'm sure there's lots of other discussions, so let's, we can talk about, the date, we can talk about, whether it should be implemented or not, how it's implemented, those type of things are all
President Wagers.
Trustee Hawes.
I was really excited. I am excited about the plan, the updated plan, because it's a path forward. And I think in looking at the metrics that we rely on when to implement it, I think things look really good. I think it looks really positive. The positivity rate is falling in the schools and the community. That's obvious. Our students are, we have less or lower absenteeism and quarantine, way less, even in January when it was really high. One of the things that we looked at before is vaccination rates. And if you look at our vaccination rates, being the Boise School District, if you look at vaccination rates as outlined in the Idaho Health and Welfare website, it actually lists vaccination rates according to zip code. So if you look at the zip codes that represent the Boise schools, that's about 244,000 in those zip codes, and the vaccination rate is about 68%. So that's obviously very positive. The biggest barrier, the thing I'm struggling with, why I can't support implementation today, is the current condition of the critical standards of care. And I think that schools play an essential role in the well-being in our community. And so for that reason, I think every little mitigation strategy, while there's downsides in each mitigation strategy, I think every little bit counts. I think a little bit counts. And so for that reason, that's why I'm struggling. That's why I can't vote for implementation today or more sooner as opposed to more later.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Hawes. Any other trustees? Trustee Schmidt?
Thanks, President Wagers. Trustee Hawes, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. When I was thinking about this decision, and I think there are several factors for me that weigh into the decision, and one of them is I'll just preface this by saying mask effectiveness is just as divided as whether or not people want to wear masks. And there are studies on both sides. As an engineer, I look at filtration effectiveness, and I have my own view on how effective masks are or are not. Setting that aside, if we just hypothetically assume for a minute that masks do have some benefit, whether you want to say that it's a huge benefit or you want to say it's almost no benefit, just hypothetically, if it has some benefit, then it has some positive effect on the transmission rate of this virus in the community. If we take that away, we're losing that effectiveness. And so we would logically think that we would probably see an increase. Maybe it's not even measurable, but maybe it is measurable in the rate of illness that we see. And our hospitals need to be able to support that if we have people that need hospitalization. I think one of the good things that we're seeing, so that's one of the factors is, for me, is can our hospitals support an increased load if they're needed to? Another is, what are the trends showing? And as the data, this whole presentation was started with, there's been a dramatic decrease in the number of cases and even in our district, which is so good. I'm so glad to see that. We're not down to less than 5%. We're not down to a 0 level. But we're also not seeing in states or other areas that have experienced the peak ahead of us, we're not seeing a secondary bump. So again, analytically, I would look at that and I would say, we in Idaho probably are not going to see a secondary bump. We're probably going to see this taper out until some new variant or some other thing comes along. But as far as Omicron goes, we're probably not going to see a rise in the next couple of weeks. So I look at that. And then another factor is just what Deputy Superintendent Roberts spoke to, is the district's ability to staff the schools effectively. Our focus is, again, like I said, not what other districts are doing, not what other states are doing. It's what can we do that's in the best interest of our kids and the staff that's supporting those kids. In the best interest of those kids is to have their teacher in the classroom being able to lead them. And so if we make a decision that makes it harder for that teacher to be in the classroom, then that's not in the best interest of the kids. Or if we make it so that we have to close down classes or close down schools, that's not in the best interest of the kids. The problem is none of us can see the future, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But what seems like this is transitioning from is or it's transitioning more to a risk assessment. Are we comfortable as a board with the level of risk given these factors? Do we think that we can respond quickly enough if we need to? Or do we think that the risk is low enough we're not going to need to respond? We're going to be able to move ahead. So like Trustee Hawes, is today the right day? He says, no. I don't know if today is the right day or not. My concern right now is not with the transmission rate. I don't have a concern. It looks to me like the trends are going down. My concern is with our ability to staff the administration and the teachers in the district, because we're close. We're right on the border. From the numbers that I saw, and maybe Deputy Superintendent Roberts, you could speak to that. Are we close where we are today to being able to meet our needs, our fill rates?
President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, I would tell you that schools are still taxed. They're not taxed the level they were in January.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much longer we could have sustained that. But we still are seeing unfilled jobs in our schools every day.
Yeah. So from my standpoint, it's that kind of risk assessment, the risk of not having the teacher in the classroom or the right support staff in the building to be able to perform those functions that they normally do is a concern for me. I guess one of the other things I would say is that this issue, and a lot of feedback we've gotten from our parents and supporters of the district, is it's completely divided. I read a particular email where someone was referencing Thomas Jefferson and the rights of the majority and the rights of the minority. And so should this just be, well, the majority rules and therefore that's what's going to happen, that we took the survey. And there are drawbacks to that. But one of the things that Thomas Jefferson said is that the sum of good government is a wise and frugal government, which shall restrain men from injuring one another, shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement. This particular issue, I think, is unique in that we're talking about something that can maybe help me not injure you. But when I say that I need to wear this mask because it helps me not injure you, it's also taking away my freedom. So it's like we can't look to Thomas Jefferson to give us the clarity in that particular case. So it's a challenge, but I think I would love to see us be able to do this as soon as we possibly can. I think I looked at the calendar, it's like 4 weeks away, 5 weeks away, something like that before spring break.
24 days. I just count.
So I would love to see it as soon as we possibly can. The number that comes to my mind is, let's take a look at it in 2 weeks and let's see how our district is how our fill rates are in 2 weeks to see if this is something that we can do. But anyway, I'm definitely interested in hearing the other trustees' opinions on this.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Schmidt. Trustee Oppenheimer?
Sure, thank you, President Wagers. And thank you for that, Trustee Schmidt. You know, I think that we all look at making this decision from many different lenses, right? We look at the data. We look at, you know, the hospitals. We look at the impact that it's having on our students and teachers or non-impact. One of the things that I often think about is that we currently in Idaho have over 4,500 deaths. That's just in Idaho. We don't have that many people, right? And every time I see that, I think about that person has left behind a parent, a grandparent, a child, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister. And it's devastating to think that so many people are dying from this. And we're arguing about masks and we're arguing about things like this. People are dying and they're leaving behind family members. And what I don't want to see is a child in the Boise School District left without a parent or a grandparent or a sister or a brother. And if we can do everything we can to mitigate that, I will support that 100%. Because I don't want to see a parent losing a child and I don't want to see a child losing a parent. And it means that much to me. And I always look at it through that lens as well. The other thing that I've been thinking about, because we all think about different aspects, right? Deputy Superintendent Roberts talked a little bit about it. We have received a lot of emails about all these states that are moving to mask optional, and I was looking at it, and a couple of things to point out from my opinion is, or from what I've read, is that of the 7, 9 states, whatever it is, a lot of those states, if not all of them, have had a governor-led mask mandate. And so there's that. So they are getting rid of the governor mask mandate. But at the same time, there's 2 other factors to think about. Many of them that I looked at, schools will still have a mask mandate. So if you go to the mall, you don't have to wear a mask. But if you're in school, you still do. And I think that's missed because people read headlines. People don't read the articles. And so, and a lot of it also is the schools that the masks will remain. A lot of them are not lifting those mask mandates until the end of March. And these are states that have peaked way before we have. So a lot of them are East Coast states, and we all know it kind of trends like this. So there's a lot of things to look at there too. So when someone says, well, all these other states are lifting their mask mandates, that's true to one little degree, but the devil's in the details and we have to pay attention to what's happening with that. So I just wanted to point that out because we do get a lot of emails about, you know, well, this is happening here and this is happening there. And we look at it and I look at it and I say, well, is that, I can't imagine 9 states are just getting rid of all their masks. Devil's in the details and you have to look at that. And so I feel like this date that is proposed, considering where we are in Idaho and what's happening, I think that it is an appropriate date to look at. It's soon, it's not tomorrow, and I get it. We all want to get out of this tomorrow, but we still have a little bit of ways to go. And again, if we can save one child from losing a parent or vice versa, I will do that.
What about the Farm Club now by masks?
Thank you, Trustee Oppenheimer.
What did the date change?
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, because a date doesn't change.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you will be asked to leave soon because you're disrupting our meeting. That's warning 1.
What does a date? have
Okay,
to
that's
do with
warning
change?
2. You're gonna have to leave the meeting. I'm sorry. We will start again when you.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Trustee Oppenheimer. Any other trustees? Trustee Gregory.
Thank you, President Wagers. I think that I'm not alone in saying that this has kept me awake a lot. And have read all 302 pages of the input and all 167 pages that we received today. And I know that this affects a lot of people. And I just have to say that having served on the school board for as long as I have, with over 21 other trustees, I can tell you that decisions like this are not taken lightly. And that we deliberate individually, and then we work as a team with our superintendent team. And that has been the case since March 16th, 2020, when this superintendency team did an absolutely incredible job of responding to a very unexpected drop in our laps of a pandemic. And they have been consistent in being thorough and understanding the situation. And as a board, we get decisions placed in our laps that impact all the way down to the classroom. And part of our job is to work with and expect the best from our superintendency. And we know that the real work that happens in the school system happens in a classroom and in a school building. And so we're talking about principals and teachers. And when we all shut down, they became our favorite people and our most missed people because our children didn't have access to them. So to Trustee Schmidt's point, having access and being able to keep our schools open is really the work that as a board and as a superintendent administrative team, we do. We do our best from the policy level and from our votes here at the board to keep schools open and to make it possible for our teachers to do their work. I have to acknowledge that our teachers and our principals have borne a heavy, heavy burden. They have been the ones right next to your kids, keeping them safe. And that has been in addition to the professional work that they do every day to teach kids. And so when we, at the board level, think about our decisions, we really have to consider keeping what it takes to keep a system going. You can't just say, well, this could go either way. Let's make a popular vote. You know, this many people vote this, vote that, will support that. That's not what board work is about. Board work is about running a school system that serves children. And so when I think about hospitals being in critical crisis standards of care, and the opportunity to monitor the situation in our community. And I personally have had people who have not had COVID, but have not been able to get critical care, who have had COVID and have had to be transferred to hospitals out of state. I think that critical standards of care, or crisis standards of care, is something that we have to decide or have to honor and recognize that is there. And although I would like an earlier date, I recognize that the administration is looking at how they can run the best system to keep our system efficient and delivering the standard of instruction and care that they would like to deliver without having that piecemeal substitute teachers covering for teachers that are out, that are not the regular teachers, et cetera. And so I'm going to support the motion for coming back from spring break with no masks.
Thank you, Trustee Gregory. Trustee Langley.
This is a really difficult situation that we are in, and like all of you colleagues, you know, all of the reading from our constituents, I've been so grateful that you guys are willing, that our constituency is willing to email us and bring forth their concerns. I feel like that is so helpful. And also it's so divided. And just like Trustee Schmidt said, the research is also divided. But I have based some of my thoughts on some key factors that I felt have been very informative to me. And one of those is the American Academy of Pediatrics. Right now, well, let's go to the past. The American Academy of Pediatrics has long stood through this crisis on the platform that children should be in school. Before we even embraced getting back to school, because we were moving a very big boat as fast as we could, the American Academy of Pediatrics was already addressing it and saying kids need to be in school with other kids. It's too much of a burden on them to be at home. They're not getting what they need when they're not in school. So we moved that direction. We got there as fast as we could in a way, the best way we could for our district. Right now, the American Academy of Pediatrics still says children need to be masked in school and they need to be in school. And so that's a resource that I have weighed heavily on because they're specifically studying children. And I think that's very, very important to the way that we're looking at what we do. We do serve all of our constituencies in this room, but our number one call is to educate children. And I think we take that very seriously. My second concern, in my spare time, I volunteer as a first responder, volunteer for a very active athletic thing. And I see a lot of accidents. That is just a sidebar, but the reality is we are in crisis standard of care. And the things that I see coming off of the activity that I participate in, those people are in a very bad situation because our hospitals are in crisis standard of care. Our community is an effective place that we've never been before until COVID. We have never had to have hospitals turn away people who are have a broken leg that is broken in a way that may kill them, but they immediately need blood stopped from surging and they can't get the care they need because there's not a bed available for them. It is a crisis.
No, I'm sorry. My dad entered this country for me and my son to wear a mask, and it's about compliance, not public safety.
And then the third thing that is a very big concern to me is operational capacity. Our administration has talked about it. It's so important to us. At the end of the day, we're running a school district. And whether we like it or not, this is the business of educating our children. And we have a staff we have to keep in place so that they can educate our children. If we don't have the staff in place, our business closes, whether we like it or not. And so at the end of the day, that is just a practical matter of numbers, whether I like it or anybody else likes it. And however I feel about masking, which I am so done with, I want to keep the doors open on our business that we're called to do. So I agree that it's not yet time during a crisis standard care time for us to unmask our children. However, I wonder if our decreasing numbers are something that we can watch and address. If we passed this today, or if we considered it, is there a point if the numbers drop greatly where we look at that instead and come back and say, we could do this earlier? Is that a question we've asked ourselves?
You asking the question?
Yeah, I am. After my tirade.
President Wagers, Trustee Langley, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
I think one of the things that is important to understand in this debate, and irrespective of how people feel personally, I can tell you that I think we all want the same thing. Okay. And this will be the third time we've come to the board at least discussing the idea of taking masks off. Unfortunately, circumstances have dictated whether or not we've actually been able to cross that threshold. But I think we all recognize the fact that that long term we need our kids without masks in school.
Amen.
And so I want to make sure that what's getting lost in this conversation is I do think that we want the same things. And it's a question of when. And I think from our perspective, or from the administrative perspective, is that we need to make sure that when we go there, we get to stay there. And because the back and forth is some of the things that we heard as we've been talking with the committees and we've talked with parents, is that the yo-yo effect gets a little old for families. But I think from our perspective, given what we have seen across the country, and the timing of some of this, I do think that the spring break timeframe is the appropriate time to go down this road. That does not mean that things can't change, as we have seen 800 times over the last 2 years. Things change. But I think as we start to do this in a planning, prudent manner, setting a date of March 28th makes the most sense. That doesn't mean things can't change. Does that answer your question? That was probably a little bit more of a soapbox than you were.
I was on a soapbox too.
Thank you, Trustee Langley and Superintendent Dennis.
President Wagers.
Trustee Haas.
I just want to be on the heels of Superintendent Dennis. I think you make a good point. I think there's a lot of discussion about passionate differences. But in reality, I think we have a lot of common interests.
We do.
We love and we're passionate about our kids. We want what is best for our kids. At the same time, we accept a level of risks associated in sending our kids out to the school world. Are they going to get hurt on the playground? Are they going to get hit by a bike or a car on their bike on the way to school? It's undeniable that we care about our neighbors. That includes teachers and staff and students and providers. And we care for not only for their safety, but we want to make sure they're there for our kids. And I think we can all agree that we care about our community. And I think there's a lot of common interests as it relates to the management of the pandemic. And it's been said many, many times that I think we all agree that in-school learning is critical for our students. And I think we can all concede that each mitigation strategy has a downside. And the greatest downside that we've identified is having to learn remote, the social isolationism and the mental strain. But I would agree that and I think we could all agree that there's a downside for each mitigation strategy. And I think we could all agree that COVID presents a heightened concern with staff and family that are medically vulnerable. And I think we all can agree that we're tired of COVID. We're tired of masks. But there's no quick answer. And the best way out is through, to quote Robert Frost. And that's what we have to do. And we have to look at a formula, in my opinion, that is based on the shared interests, which it would be that we've got to do what's best to safeguard the health and the safety of our kids, teachers, staff, and parents, and our neighbors, and to also ensure that our kids have in-class learning with acceptable risk and the least downside for everyone. That's a tough one, isn't it? That's a tough one. So my point is, I think we have a lot in common, and it's a very complicated analysis to get through. But the best way out is through, and we just have to do this together.
Thank you, Trustee Haas. I'll be pretty short and sweet. Talked about interests. My interests are having kids in the classroom. If we have kids in the classroom, that means their parents can be at work. And I am a business owner. I've had lots of parents out because their kids are sick, which means then I can't run my business very well. We have the same issue in our school district where we can't run the business of school well because we have sick kids or sick parents or sick grandparents. It can be any of those options. We also impact the healthcare system the same way. If our nurses are home because their kids are sick, then they can't be in the hospitals getting rid of standards of care, which is what we all want. So one of my interests is having kids in classrooms. The other reason why I want them in the classrooms, that's where they learn the best, with a great teacher in front of them teaching. My other interest is safety of students and staff. I mean, that's inevitably, that's who's responsible inside of our buildings. And not just physical safety, but mental and emotional. We need to balance all those things out. So, those are my interests, I guess, is what it comes down to. And I guess I believe that the administration's recommendation meets those interests. Once again, is it as fast as I would like? No. Am I tired of masks? Yes. But do I wear one every day? Yes. So that's what I got. Anything else from trustees?
Appreciate the discussion.
Thank you. With that, we have a motion and we have a second, which means we will take a vote on that motion unless there's amendment to it or any other change to it, which let's see. So with that, we will go to a vote. All in favor, let me do this correctly. The administration's recommendation of implementing the health and safety data plan of March 28th, 2022. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. With that, we will go ahead and move on to the budget schedule for 2022-23. Back to Deputy Superintendent Roberts.
President Waiters, trustees, thank you for your thoughtful deliberation. I am going to ask you to reference enclosure 24 for our budget development schedule for the budget for the 22-23 school year. April 29th, we would have our first budget session workshop. May 9th, we would have our second budget session regular board meeting. Approval of the budget for advertising. We always have to go out and advertise. First public input, and then of course the report from the Ada County Assessor's Office. May 26th, if needed, we would have another budget workshop. And then on June 13th would be our regular board meeting, which would also serve as our budget public hearing. And final approval of the budget for the 22-23 school year would be on June 13th. So I ask for your approval of this schedule.
Thank you. Entertain a motion, Trustee Gregory.
Thank you for the schedule, Deputy Superintendent Roberts. It's nice and deliberate, gives us lots of touch points so that we have to act on it. I move approval of the 2022-2023 budget schedules outlined in enclosure number 24.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Trustee Oppenheimer. Discussion on the schedule? I know for a couple of you, well, at least one is the first time through this process. So, this is an important piece of what we do.
Yes.
It's a very important piece of what we do. It's strategic planning and budgeting, really, really boring for lots of folks, but some of the most important things we do because we allocate resources. And that, however you allocate your resources is what the mission of your deal is. So this of your organization. This is important that we do this and we do it well and we do it transparently. Any other discussion on the schedule? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
President Wagers, trustees, before I sit down, I just would like to extend a huge thank you to Will Goodman and Bella Venegas for punting when all of our sound system went out today. They did a really nice job at that. So a huge thank you to them.
Yay. Otherwise, we would have a meeting that we might not have a meeting. Director Anderson.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about first reads for policy revision. We have 6 policies and 1 regulation up for first read tonight. Basically what that means is you have time between now and the next board meeting to review any of these and reach out to myself or anyone else that's on the governance committee if you have questions. And all of the proposed changes are attached in the agenda. Did anybody have any questions right now that I could help with? Okay, you know where to find me.
I will find you on strategic planning
Okay.
at some point, just because that's,
Absolutely.
maybe I've been on a long time and I just want to have, I know you pull a lot of stuff out, but it was covered in other areas of the policy and it made sense, almost all of it.
Yep, yes,
But I need to, I'll get your kind of where the committee's going with that from you.
definitely.
That's the nice part about going through 2 readings with everything is we have that chance to have interaction in between.
Definitely.
Any other trustees' comments on the first readings of all these policies? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. We have no second readings tonight. And so with that, we can go on to trustee and superintendent comments. Trustee Haas.
Just rotate. Thank you very much, President Wagers. Appreciate the discussion tonight and some tough things that we're really wrestling with. So I appreciate you all and the deliberations that we went through. I just want to give you a quick update on our student board engagement issue that we've been following. Pink Eye and I have been meeting with Lizzie a few times. I think we met with her 3 times. And she's actually going to make a presentation at our at the March 8th communications meeting, a presentation on a proposal, and it's going to be based loosely, I think, on what Coeur d'Alene is doing. So it's a kind of a tried and true method on student board engagement. So I think that'll be very productive. And so I just want to let everyone know that we're moving forward with that because we take it very, very seriously. We do a really good job with board student engagement anyways, but we could always do better. So we're really excited about that. So just want to report that to you and the board.
Thanks for doing that, you too.
Yeah, it's actually really, it was so great sitting down with Lizzie and talking through it and learning what other districts are doing to engage student voice. I'm actually really excited about doing something in that realm. So I think it'll be fun.
Well, great to see what comes up at the board level after all that input.
Yeah,
you know, and different
I
things.
mean,
So
we have talked through a lot of stuff, and so she's gonna put together a proposal and a plan, and I'm sure we'll throw that around a little bit and see what comes out of it.
great. Thank you again for doing that. More work to be done though, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
Anything else from trustees? I mean, I also would like to thank our tech. Appreciate, you know, when you walk into the board meeting and say, well, we're not sure we're going to have one. It's like, and this is a big board meeting, we need to have it, and they got it done. So thank you. Thank you to the 2 of you for making that happen. I appreciate that. Trustee Gregory?
A reminder to trustees, we have Day on the Hill on the next Monday, 21st and 22nd. And an opportunity for a workshop or 2, and then attending the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee, where ISBA and trustees will be present and being part of the presentation. They usually try to make sure that some really friendly to education bills are presented or heard on the day that we're there, just to give us a taste of their work. And there's usually, they are also hosting a forum for the candidates for Idaho State Superintendent of Public Instruction. So that might be something that everybody be interested in on Monday. So you can check, you can go to idsba.org and look for events and go Day on the Hill, and you'll find the agenda, or talk to Sharon.
President Wagers, can I ask a question about that? Nancy, is that going to be video streamed, or is it only live?
I don't think they have decided yet. They're working on it.
Okay.
But it is kind of, it's not a debate.
Right.
It's just a forum, because they haven't ever brought that forum to trustees.
Yep.
And it's just an opportunity while we're there on the Hill to have that.
I was just curious
Yeah.
if, because my second question would then be, what time do you know? Is that, that's in the afternoon on that day, isn't it?
I think it's like noonday. noon.
Okay,
I will find out the exact time and.
And I can work
get
with
back.
Sharon.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity for continuing education for trustees. We can learn a lot from others, from the legislature and from other trustees in other districts and how they deal with the stuff we get to deal with.
If I could just bring one thing up to the board before we get out of here. I know there's been a lot of coverage about the health insurance that has been signed into law by the governor just this last week. I think it's important to just make sure that the board is aware that participation in this is voluntary. So I want the board to make sure that they understand that. And the way the law is currently written, in order for school districts to participate in this, there is going to be a significant shortfall in revenue to make this happen. With all that being said, just so the board understands the process that we use, and particularly for those of you that are new to this, we have what we call a joint insurance committee that's made up of both the teachers and administration that studies these things every month. They take a look at it, they debate it, they talk about it, and from that insurance committee, there will be a recommendation that will be made to the negotiations team. And the reason that's important is once a recommendation is made, then the question is, how do you pay for it? And is that a higher priority than other things? And so as we move ourselves through this, I think it's going to be critical that we follow that process before we start jumping to conclusions as to whether or not we are or aren't going to be a part of this issue. Okay, so just for the board's being aware of that, it's got some issues. I will say that I am thrilled that the state is talking about this, and irrespective of where we fall, I think it's a huge positive in the long term for the state. So that was all I had on my.
Okay. I mean, the only other thing I think about it is I think we've already had plane flights booked for the National School Board Association, which is the beginning of April. So that will be, I think, a 3-4 day trip for us. Once again, for more continuing ed. So appreciate that. Anything else? With that, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It's quite a way to spend it, but once again, it's good work. Trustee Gregory.
I'm going to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second, Trustee Haas.
Hey, guys.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. This meeting's adjourned.